Hello everyone, this is a video not of pixel art this time, but of me texturing a goblin model, a low polygon model, and I'm doing a hand painted texture because that's kind of one of my favorite. Now the X and circle that I did there on the leg was a way to find which polygon was which, because I still use this very primitive method, which is to paint the texture in Photoshop while I look at the updated model in my 3D modeling software, which in this case is 3D Studio. I know that there are softwares out there like 3D Code in which you can paint directly into the model. Even Photoshop allows that if you have the extended version, which I don't. Allows you to paint directly on the model, but I've just really gotten used to doing it like this because it's almost an exercise of lateral thinking. I have to imagine the model plan on a surface and paint over it. So it's kind of a challenge at the same time. Now what I'm doing here is the legs, because the legs are meant to be very big and they're very important in the silhouette. Now if you look at the view of the 3D model, this is pretty much where it's going to be seen from the top back in game. So I try to figure out the lighting on the legs for that in a way that they look distinct and interesting at the same time. And then I move on to different parts of the model. Now the back are also important. I'm trying to have some wrinkles here so that it's not a flat surface, and it's something that is kind of annoying to get, because if your light is going to be dynamic and you put in a static shadow, it's not going to work well together. So you always have to work in this kind of acceptable way. It's normal to have lighting coming from the above, so you kind of accept any shadows that are on the bottom part of the model. This is also the arm. I'm fairly quick at doing the arm. I've done, I don't know, probably about 500 3D model arms in my life. I mean, the whole texture painting. So I almost know it by heart where the shapes are and where the muscles are. So it's really quick. Now the fun bit is the face, and it's also the one where I spend a little bit more time, because the model isn't as soft as the texture that I'm painting. The model basically has the surfaces pointing the right way, so that when I put the lighting on and the texture, it looks like it's pointing the correct way. But there's almost no wrinkles, there's no rounded cheekbones, there's no fold of the nostrils next to the body of the nose. So I'm sort of hand painting all of that in, hoping that it'll make sense. I put that little vein there on the forehead, but it looks really bad. So I end up removing it for a smooth surface. Again, this is a model that's going to be seen from really far away. And I'm basically doing all this work with the texture for an eventual situation in which you have the character on the bestiary to explain what this enemy is, what are his strengths or his weak spots. And here, through a strange combination of key presses, I've lost my 3D model. Then I got it back. So I'm trying to figure out the direction of the lines in the hand, because hands are again something that is very time consuming to model and to then texture. But what I do is I make the hand out of sort of this blocky thing, and then I just figure out where the lines for the fingers go. And because it's a part of the model that's going to be moving quite a lot, because he will be performing attacks, and even when he's running, his hands will be moving forward and back at a faster speed than, for example, the elbows will, because the elbows are like halfway. I don't need to make the texture super detailed, so it's not a matter of worrying about the quality of the model, but a matter of worrying about my time, of managing whether or not will I have time to do this and that. So it's a matter of fine-tuning where you think is important and not spending too much time on parts that are not going to be even noticed. The parts here of the ears, I started by carving out the whole of the ear with black. That came out a little too strong, so I had to put the dark gray back in. And on the neck here, I was thinking of just doing a dark neck, but the shirt contrasts with it really high, so now I'm painting a shadow on the shirt so that it looks like a cast shadow from the head. And at this point where almost everything is done, you kind of jump from one place to another. Here on the shoes, I wanted to do this, like these wrapped bandages or leather on the shoe, so I wasn't really sure what texture that should be. And also I wanted the calves to have sort of a half decent lighting, in the sense that they would have a bounce light from the top of the foot and a bit of shadow on the bottom of the calf muscles. Um, so in a way, it came very soft, and I stopped worrying about the potential of using a texture and lines and stuff like that. So now I'm using a layer style. Well, first of all, I added a layer in color mode. I think it was actually soft color or soft light, and added color to it. And then I added an adjustment so that I make the a color balance adjustment layer so that I make the highlights a little more yellowish. Because if you don't do this, even though you have color, your model will still look monochrome. It'll still look dull and not so lively. The same reason why I added some highlights on the trousers or the legs there a little bit, just to make it a little more vivid, a little more interesting and saturated. But for the most part here, it's mainly figuring out a color scheme. It's not about adding the final detail. That's something that happens later on, which unfortunately I don't have footage of. But it happens later on as you gradually look at the model and feel like this could be improved, this could be improved. So you add. So if I now have, let's say, 20 layers, I end up with about 40. And many of those layers is just me putting stuff over it. But this is a low-res texture that I experimented with putting on the model, which will probably be more than enough for the game. And that was 100 by 28, 128 by 128 texture. So even then, the level of detail and the shading were enough to convey the shapes of the model, and allowed me to push the model away from the camera and still be able to have it read fairly well. And I'm just doing a little mesh adjustments, and here is the final model. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and take care.